All right, guys, my name is Alex Davis. I'm an instructor here at the University of Findlay in media communication. If I don't know you, a quick introduction. I've got my bachelor's and master's in media communication from BGSU, where I'm also working on my PhD in media communication. God willing, will be done this spring semester. We'll see though. So today, what I'm going to talk to you guys about is togetherness, right? When we think about different cultures, we all come from different backgrounds, even if we live in the same town, high school, area, club, sports, right? Even if we're the same ethnicity, race, we still have different cultural backgrounds. There are cultures for everything: household culture, town culture, city culture, sport culture, and it varies by particular team or particular sport. It's all based upon the actual individuals involved. And so my goal in talking about togetherness, or as I do this, strategy-wise, I'm going to share a couple stories through that of personal reflection, also spoken word, and then we're going to dive into something at the end I like to call the vows of togetherness. We're going to take our vows while also breaking down the vowels of togetherness. I know a lot of V's going on. So I got this from an individual. She actually spoke here a couple weeks ago at our Martin Luther King celebration in the AMU. Her name is Lyrical Faith. And anyone ever been to like an open mic, anything like that? Okay, so you know, open mics, poetry readings, slam poetry, interaction is encouraged, right? So if you like something you hear, you want to snap, you want to make a noise, right? Like, ooh, ah, right? Go ahead, or you have a different sound. I know that I actually say oohs and ahs out loud, but you know what I'm trying to say. So let's go ahead and do one together. On the count of three, we're going to go ooh. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Ooh, that was so weak. Put a smile on when you do it, all right? Get smile with the best. I need smiles. Come on with the shoulders. Come on, we can do it now. 1, 2, 3. Ooh. You're not smiling back there. Yep, you right there. Let's do an ah. Are you awake? Do we need to stretch? Want to do a toe touch? There we. That's what I'm talking about. Yes. All right. I'm counting. We're gonna do ah. 1, 2, 3. Ah. Oh, there we go. Much better. So do not hesitate. If you like something or you don't like something, you can say 1, 2, 3. Boo. Right. That's just fine. I won't stop. I'll keep going. So you just have to continue to listen to something you don't like, but encouraged to respond how you would like to respond. This first piece is called Pay It Forward. Conceptually, it's about a time when I was trying to get to the airport to get back home to pick up my son in time. So it goes like, I get to my gate and find my flight to be canceled. This is the last one for this airline. My timeline isn't ending. Get to my son. This is the goal indeed. I needed to pick him up the next day, so proper speed is the need. I find a new gate labeled Delta above. The first attendant was not helpful. No, he almost called out his name, but I took a breath and a shrug. The lady next to him, she was nice. She showed me love. She called me over to her side of the desk. I took a couple steps and told her my request. She immediately began typing. I asked if she could do it. Her reply was a yes. Do it, she did, and ease the pain in my chest. Her name was Miss Dooney. I said, thank you. I appreciate you greatly. You got me on a flight in proper time to see my baby. My next task was making sure I made the connection in Atlanta. I just wish there was a nonstop in my starting point in the city of Kansas. Running through the airport, don't care how I look, in and out, left and right, crossover, left and shook. A lady across the way said, you can do it. I told her I would. Boy, did I need some water, but I made it. I was good. Yes, I was there. I sat down in that chair. I was oh so relieved when we were up in that air. My destination was Dayton. That's where I was parked. Got to the lot at midnight, and I was driving home in the dark. Made it to Findlay. Now all was well. I got to my bed, and on my pillow I fell. Woke up the next day, picked my son up, mission complete. I was oh so relieved when we sat down to eat. Thank you, Miss Dooney, as well as the lady across the way. You both turned my skies blue from the previous gray. I was ready to convert like my last name was Corver. They hit me with the assist. I promise I'll pay it forward. Now, when someone does a good deed for you, it feels good, right? It feels good. And that's not the only time that we should feel the urge or desire to do a good deed for someone else. We should feel that way regardless. But nonetheless, when that occurred for me over the course of the next week or two, when I had that, whether it was words of encouragement, or just the actual support to find me another connecting flight that worked for me, like, how can I pay this forward? So I'm seeking other ways to help or assist individuals, right? Once again, we should just do this without having to have good deeds done for us, but that, prompted me to search for ways that I could be of service to other individuals. And ultimately, when you're of service to somebody else, you're bringing things or items or people together, right? You're helping someone solve their problem or fulfill a need, right? Or a want or a desire. You're connecting them to that item or that person. And ultimately, you guys are becoming closer. This is, situation is 2 or 3 years old at this point, but man, I remember Miss Dooney, and I definitely doubt she remembers who I am. And I remember the lady who shouted across the way at the airport in Atlanta, and I also doubt that she remembers who I am. But they impacted my day that much through the service that they provided me, right? And so for me, I'm together with them. If they ever found me or needed something in the future, I'll give them whatever I need because they got me back to my son on time, right? And they made that possible. So when I think about togetherness, you already see the equation up here on the screen, but can't have togetherness. It's not just there, right? It takes 2 things to get there. And one of the big words is inclusion, right? We've been talking about inclusion as a society strongly for probably the last 10 to 20 years, as we should, and continue to discuss that, right? But I think one that gets left out is the aspect of curiosity. And here we see it put as exploration, right? We can't have togetherness while we just include, right? Because we need someone to be willing to explore on the other side. I can be willing to include Dr. Wong or Alex, right? But if they don't want to explore, then we can't actually come together. And it goes both ways, right? Exploration should be highlighted much more. So inclusion plus exploration equals togetherness. That's the only way that we actually come together. And when I think about together, I think of a substance that we should all be familiar with through grade school, or if we're creative crafters, whatever it may be, but it's glue, right? What do you guys think of when you think about glue? Sticky. First one, thank you. It's sticky, right? What does glue do? Say it. It holds things together, right? Glue bridges the gap between 2 items or 2 people that were not previously connected, right? Glue creates pathways for successful relationships to those around us, right? This can include unity between peers, colleagues, teammates, co-workers, right? Coaches, players, family members, friends, and many other domains for which we are required to interact with one another, right? Glue is like double-sided tape, but it's much stronger. Nonetheless, the concept holds the same, right? Now, over time, what happens? What can happen when 2 things or items are connected by glue? It can wear off, right? So what do we do when this happens? Well, in some cases, the relationships are meant to be let go of, right? Coerced cohesion is not the best option. However, in healthy relationships seeking reestablishment, then a new layer of glue is obviously always welcome. And hopefully this go around, the relationship can last for much longer and be much stronger than it previously was before. So I believe that togetherness is much like glue, and I believe that we should be the glue when we deem fit, and be the glue when life tells us or needs us to be the glue, right? Ultimately, and if you're, believer, be the glue when God tells you to be the glue. So with that said, when I think about glue and inclusion, exploration, togetherness, I think about 2 stories. 2 stories that my uncle has told me countless times. He can tell them far better than I can. But it's about him and my dad, and they're not blood related. He's my dad's best friend, but he's more like an uncle to me. These are stories. They're both like 62, 63 now. So these are stories from like 40 years ago when they were much younger and met. And ultimately, they highlight all 3 of those: inclusion, exploration, and togetherness. This piece is 2-part. You'll know where the break is. It doesn't have a title. We'll ultimately find one someday. So it starts like this. It was game point. The crowd was going wild. Some were happy, some were mad that I had so much style. This was Lafayette Park, and I was the only white. The rest were black and brown, all of us under bright lights. Friday night, smoking booze filled the air. When I first walked in, all I felt were firm stares. See, this place was different. This was the Bronx, especially for me, a white kid from Vermont. How did I get here? The thought crosses my mind. My best friend from college said, ride home with me, and of course I obliged. 5'10" and stocky, not tall, closer to short, but I was tough navigating broken glass on the court. All for the sport and the love of the game, never embarrassed about who I was, and I never felt shame. My face in my shirt drenched in all kinds of sweat, dribbling past half court while viewers placed their bets. I'm focused on the net, I penetrate the lane. I head towards the rim, the defender does the same. He tries to take my soul, I put my knee in his chest. Finger roll should do it. It falls through the net. The park goes bananas, tensions are high. We find a way out and made it home alive. Went back the next day, no one came at my neck, no longer a threat. I had all their respect. See, it all felt surreal. It was a beautiful time. I'm glad I explored a landscape I couldn't first see with my eyes. I walk into a bar. No, this is not a joke. It's not a joke. The air filled with booze and cigarette smoke. I'm with my best friend. He's a guy from the town. No rap music, just guitar sounds. See, this is not what I'm used to. Everyone's white. I mean, I know that I'm black, but I am super light. I try to fit in, but I'm 6'4", everyone's looking and they're very unsure. My boy goes to the bathroom and leaves me alone. I'd feel way more comfortable if I was at home. This guy comes close, and I can feel his energy taking a turn. I said, I'm from the Bronx, you can find out and learn. His buddies come close, they got me boxed in. My boy is back from the bathroom, thank God for my friend. He clocks the group leader right on the chin. Boom, bat, bow. We swing and we grin. Once again, it's on, it's a full-out brawl. We left mostly untouched and most certainly stood tall. This is not what I expected, but I'm glad I explored. Get out of your zone, the world you must tour. So in both of those pieces, once again, they both reference my dad, who was a white man, and one of his best friends, if not his best friend, who is a black man, who I refer to as my uncle. They both highlight inclusion and exploration, ultimately ending in togetherness in different ways. The first one, right, my uncle was willing to include my dad, taking him back to the Bronx and his area where they played basketball with, hundreds of others on this Friday night in the park. But my dad was also willing to explore, and ultimately they're together, but then also we find other togetherness with my dad, who was an outsider but is now an insider as they go back the next day with a similar crowd, right? And the second one, they're like, it wasn't really togetherness. Well, hang on. There was inclusion. My dad reached out and included my uncle to, his small area in Vermont, right, where my uncle was not familiar with. My uncle was willing to explore, and although we didn't have ultimate togetherness at the end, right, the entire bar didn't come together and, have a big celebration of togetherness, right, we still have my dad and my uncle who are from completely different backgrounds, cultures, ethnicities, cities, towns, right, and now they're together, all because one was willing to include and one was willing to explore. Now, when I think about inclusion, I think about a time when my dad and I used to live on the northwest side of Dayton, Ohio, and this area was predominantly black. I think my dad was one of 2 white house owners on the street, right? But my dad immersed himself in the cultural landscape of this neighborhood. That meant playing basketball with the neighborhood kids, going to the park to play basketball and enjoy summer activities. This is 1995, and people were like really outside, when being outside to be outside. So Saturdays at the park, it was like a barbecue, right? Music blasting. People were, waiting to get on the court. It was fun, hula hooping, kids playing pool, so on and so forth. He also, would throw house parties, to my mother's dismay, right? But it was a way for him to immerse himself in the cultural landscape of Wakefield Avenue. With that said, he was also an avid hip-hop listener, consumer of black culture already, so it just made sense that he fit in. This is who he was and where he wanted to be. With that said, his exploration, the neighborhood also included him, right? The neighborhood knew who he was because he got out and explored, and ultimately he became a fixture. He became a fixture or a piece in the neighborhood because of that. He would take me to a black barber shop down the street where I would get a bald fade and 2 lines in the side of my head as a kid. I used to love it. It was the greatest shop in the world as a kid. Years later, fast forward, we moved to Centerville, Ohio. Centerville, Ohio is a suburb outside of Dayton, Ohio, and it's very much the opposite of Dayton, Ohio. Culturally, it's super white, 99.9% white. Don't quote me on that. It's not, I'm using that for emphasis, right? But it was completely flipped from that of the northwest side of Dayton where we previously lived at. There was no black barbershop in Centerville, Ohio. I quickly learned, can't get what I desire here, what I'm used to here. Can't get the same kind of haircut. Now I bring that up because fast forward 2019, my family and I moved here to Findlay, Ohio. And I'm familiar with the area. I used to go to school at Bowling Green and work in Toledo. I just knew there is not going to be a black barber here in Findlay, Ohio. I'm going to have to drive 50 minutes to Toledo. This is going to suck, right? I'm just not looking forward to it. Lo and behold, I stumble upon a place called Cliff's Corner. Cliff, black barber shop, black owned. Cliff cuts my son's hair for 2 years. He relocates to Georgia. B. Harris, who used to cut under Cliff, opens up his own shop. Then he cuts my son and myself's hair for the next 2 years. He relocates to Charlotte, and now an individual who used to cut under B. Harris, as well as Joe and Vic, 2 other barbers of color here in town. Heem opens up his own spot. Now my son and I get cut by Heem. I bring these individuals up not because because they're businessmen, right? They're entrepreneurs, but because I think that townscapes, cities, markets should figure out how to include individuals before they actually arrive, right? These individuals I just named, barbers, they weren't funded or put in place by the city or anyone else. They started their own business on their own, right? However, I do think that these townscapes and landscapes should figure out how to include individuals before they arrive. We're going to get there even more emphasized here momentarily. Is anyone familiar with Japan West here in town? Okay, restaurant downtown, if you're not familiar, it's pretty solid. Just a couple years ago, and sitting there, I wasn't eavesdropping, I just got satellites on the side of my head. And this individual was talking to the waiter, and this individual was explaining how they were on their way to Michigan for the day, and they were looking for a place to stop on their trip. They're coming from Indiana, and they chose Findlay because they saw that we had Japan West. And I was so happy to hear that because it meant that we, the city, Findlay, had something to offer this individual before they arrived, right, before they got here. They had no plans to stop in Findlay until they saw that we had Japan West. And what did I do with my clicker? It's right there, beautiful. And that takes us here. Inclusion starts before those needing to be included arrive. Inclusion starts before those needing to be included arrive. And in a similar fashion, exploration begins before those needing to be explored are present, right? The more that we study other cultures, right? This doesn't all have to be about, ethnicity and race, gender, right? It can be simply about sport. It can be country, continent, city, weather, right? Anything that's outside of our own filter bubble or echo chamber, right? Let's explore those things, because then when they arrive, we're already going to be understanding, comprehensive of them, and maybe not in full, right? But we'll be able to, empathize or align or understand them, a little bit more than we would have if we're brand new to them, right? So being open, being welcoming of others before they actually are present, and then looking for ways to include before those individuals actually arrive. And this could be individuals, it could be standards, it could be cultural tradition or ritual, right? The more that I'm aware of these things across society in general, ultimately, the more together we'll be able to come. So once again, inclusion plus exploration equals togetherness. You're gonna get tired of that. You're gonna have it memorized by the time we get out of here. So that takes me to a point in this presentation. It's called Vows of Togetherness. And in the Vows of Togetherness, we're going to highlight attendance, exploration, inclusion, and understanding. To do so, though, we're going to highlight the vowels of togetherness. What are our vowels? A, E, I, keep coming. O, and what?
E.
And sometimes?
Y.
Y. Beautiful. Perfect. So for A, we're looking at attend, right? And what time do we have? Oh, we have time. Beautiful. So attend means to what? What does attend mean for you guys? Go to something, right? When is the time that someone's shown up for you? When is the time that someone's attended something for you? Real question, not rhetorical. Spit it out. You don't have to raise your hand. Sports. What else? Concerts. Yeah. Keep coming. Give me a couple more. Graduation. Yeah, that's a big one. Classes. All right, for sure. Yeah. As a teacher, yes. Please attend our classes. Yes, we want to see your faces for sure. When's the time that you've attended something for someone else? And you can't say class at this point. Just need you to be there. Just be present, right? Just for sure. What else? Family events. Dr. Long, what do you have?
Community potluck.
Community potluck, right? For sure. There are so many ways that we can attend, right? And show up for ourselves, but also others. There are so many ways that someone can show up for us as well. You'll see two others here, and you'll see this as we go down the line. But assessment and accommodation, right? When I say assess, assessing conversation, right? Assessing interaction, right? You guys are just talking about nonverbal cues and nonverbal language, right? Have you ever left an interaction with somebody wondering, did they understand how I wanted that to come off, right? Or did I perceive what they were saying correctly, right? Many a time I do, for sure. For various reasons, right? It could be my own, it could be theirs. We could be just from two completely different, planes of the earth and not on the same page, right? Some individuals shake hands. Not everybody does that, right? There are so many different cultural customs that may be okay over here, but maybe offensive over here, right? So I'm always in my head assessing interaction. Now, how often do you guys go back and make sure the other individual understood what you were saying? So sometimes, right? It's easier, said than done, right? For sure. I'm going to encourage you guys, if you ever have a thought, to always go back, right? Because I would rather be on the same page with someone understanding. Even if we're at odds, at least we know and understand that we're at odds, right? Okay, you know I'm over here, I know you're over there, and that's fine, but now it's clear, right? But the more knowledgeable you are of whether we let, both understanding what we were saying, the better, right? When's the time you've been accommodated? Okay, what's your name?
Samantha.
Samantha.
Injury.
Injury. Okay, how were you accommodated?
Last semester I sprained both my ankles the day before my last exams, so I got to take them, one of them a following day, so I didn't have to sit or be standing for too long.
Okay, nice, for sure. That's a good example. What else? Accommodated. Someone who hasn't spoken yet. You were ready. I'm sorry. Go for it.
I guess I know when my parents have friends over, they like to, adjust the thermostat based on like who's going to be coming over because they don't want people to get too hot or too cold.
No, for sure. That's very kind. I can't say that I've performed that level of kindness yet. No, I'm mass. No, I'm specific. About that thermostat for sure. Shout out to your parents. What else? Give me one more. How have you been accommodated, Alex?
So like, if you run with a friend who hates a certain type of music, like not playing that type of music.
That's very accommodating. Do you do that?
No, all my friends and us, we listen to the same exact music.
Okay, so that works.
For the
What you
most
would do?
part, there's like one or two where I'll switch it up, but like for the most part, it's the same music.
Everybody, come on, there we go. I'm not changing my music up for anybody, right? I'm telling you to be accountable. I'm being silly. I would change my music for sure. Those are great examples. So the more that we work to accommodate each other and others in general, they don't have to be close friends, family, relatives. They can be someone completely different, right? And accommodation doesn't always have to, come by way of lack of ability or disability, right? It can just be something simple, changing the thermostat, right? Turning, my music off or their music or riding in silence, whatever the preference is of my listener, right? For E, explore. Right? We talked about explore already, but under explore there are going to be things, right? Educating, empowering, encouragement, right? When's the time you had to educate somebody? Go for it.
When I had to help teach some of my classmates a few concepts that they didn't quite understand, like history and math and all that.
Right? Okay, I like it for sure. What else? Or a time someone educated you? Samantha.
When I first got to college, I used to tell my friends how to write emails to professors.
Woo! Man, keep doing that. We need to have a class on that for sure. But you don't know what you don't know, right? So if you've never corresponded in that manner, then you might not know how to go about it, right? That's really good. How about when's the time that you've been empowered or someone's empowered you? Kai, what do you got? Okay. You got it. What's your name?
Emily.
Emily, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I was gonna say like pre-game talks before a game.
Okay. Yeah. Coach or teammates?
Yeah, we used to all go around and say something, and it was pretty empowering.
All right. I like it. No, for sure. Now I'll probably go up. You can also blend the lines between empower and encourage, right? Very similar. I already went over include, right? But under inclusion, right, or including, however you want to put it, is inviting, right? When you extend a hand to somebody, bring them into what you're doing, right? Very similar to that of inclusion. I also have here intend and interact, right? Because anything we do, we want it to be intentional, right? We don't want to just do it to do it or do it because we got a good deed done for us, right? Do it because you're supposed to do it. There's a quote or a meme out there somewhere I've seen on social media, right? But do what's right because it's right, because you're supposed to, right? So be intentional when you include someone. Be intentional when you explore, right? Be intentional when you interact with somebody. And what do I mean by that? I mean be present, right? You can look somebody in the face or the eyes, and you can tell when they're not there with you, right? They're like, okay, they don't actually care. Let me end this conversation so I can get out of here, right? I'm crushing their time right now. So once again, ties back into nonverbal cues and communication, right? You can, man, I had an individual in class a couple years ago, and this individual had, for lack of a better description, what do you call it, RBF, right? And every time that I was up in front of the class, like, it went like for 5 or 6 weeks, and I'm like, man, are you okay? Am I doing something wrong? Am I offending you? And they're like, no, why? And I'm like, because man, your face just says like that life sucks right now. They're like, no, I'm okay. I'm just fine. I'm having a great day, right? So that's just you know how their face was looking. But now they're aware that they may come across that way, right? And in fact, they actually said that they've heard that before, right? But be mindful of facial expressions, right? Other body language, right? You know, slouching in a chair, hunched over, right? Or you know, you see somebody walk like this, they might be sad. They might be thinking about life. They also might be sad, right? Normally, when we see somebody with a smile, what can we tell? It's not a trick question. They're happy, right? They're in a good mood, right? Or it's toxic positivity and they're trying to get themselves in a good mood. But yeah, I mean, it happens too. So you got to do what you got to do, for sure. But be intentional when you interact with others, right? Really be present. Make them know that you're there and that you want to be there and that you want them to be there in whatever space you guys are in. There we go. So O is to opt, right? And opt is, what does it mean to opt? Not opt, but opt. We're all friends here. Right, to dive in, right, to opt in. You can opt out too, right, to do something, right? So when I say opt, know what to opt into, know what to opt out of, right? Maybe you've tried to include or tried to explore, and this individual or group says, not happening, right? Maybe it's not time. Maybe I'm crossing a line. I'm going to opt out of this conversation, right? There are plenty of conversations or situations that we should opt out of. U is for understand and unite. We've talked about understanding already, but being willing to understand, right? Sometimes it takes the extra step, the extra question or sentence. It doesn't mean you have to minimize your perspective or your thoughts, right? But put them out there with how to attend, assess, accommodate, explore, educate, empower, encourage, include, invite, interact. Yay! Thank you so much, guys. I hope this helps. I hope you take this forward and share it with somebody else.